The third example is at discourse level. So the topic here is differences in information structure between English and Chinese. The corpus data used here is the novel Pride and Prejudice, the English version and the Chinese translation. The research method is observing language data, then confirmation or refutation of a hypothesis. So the student first had some hypotheses about the information structure in English and in Chinese. The first hypothesis is the principle of temporal sequence, PTCS. So Chinese word order corresponds to thought flow in a genuinely natural way. Chinese is iconic. Its word order is natural rather than salient. So Chinese is a topic prominent language. But in English, we put the salient information first. Let's look at the examples. So the students researched and found the concordance, parallel concordance examples. And the first example shows that in the English text, it says, Miss Lucas called soon after breakfast. But in Chinese, it's 卢卡斯小姐刚一吃过早饭就来访问. Okay, in the English version, the salient information, the important information is called, okay? After breakfast is not important. Called is important. So in English, we put the important information at the beginning of the sentence. But in Chinese, it's different. Chinese follows a natural flow. So it follows the natural time order. So Lucas 小姐 had breakfast first, then she came for a visit. So 刚吃过晚饭就来访问. So the order is the opposite, okay? And the second example is similar. Okay, Mr. Collins returned into Hertfordshire soon after it had been quitted by the Gardners and Jane. So, but in the Chinese translation is 加蒂娜夫妇和吉英刚刚离开哈德福郡，柯林斯先生就回到哈德福郡去。And the last example is Miss Darcy much grown since the spring. But in the Chinese, we would say 从春天到现在，达西小姐长高了很多吧。Okay, so put the time frame first, then put the person in this time frame. So this is a natural order versus a salient order. And then another hypothesis is that in Chinese, a larger scope preceding those with a smaller scope in time and space. Okay, in English, we would say, I cannot comprehend the neglect of a family library in such times as these. So the important information is the first part. In such days as this is just a time adverbial clause at the end. But in Chinese, we tend to put this scope in time at the beginning of the sentence. 如今这个时代, then we put the people and event in this time space. Okay, 我不好意思忽略家里的书房. Okay, the second example is similar. She was the only creature in the room that he asked a second time. But in Chinese, is 整个舞厅里只有他一个人受到他第二次邀请. So in Chinese, we emphasize the space first. So the bigger, the whole scope, 整个舞厅, then people in this whole space. Okay, 他受到第二次邀请. And then the third hypothesis is that in Chinese, the modifying clauses precedes the modified principle representing the natural or iconic order. For example, in English, we say, I think it would be very hard upon younger sisters that they should not have their share of society and amusement because the elder may not have the means or inclination to marry earlier. But in Chinese, we have to give the reason first. Okay, 要是因为姐姐们无法早嫁或是不想早嫁，做妹妹的就不能有社交和娱乐，那实在太苦了他们。So in Chinese, we give the reasons, then we tell the results. But in English, it's the opposite. We give you the result, and then we say because blah, blah, blah. Okay? And the second example is similar. It will be no use to us if 20 such should come. since you will not visit them. But in Chinese we say, 你既然不愿意去拜访他们，即使有20个搬来了，对我们又有什么好处？ Again, the order is just the opposite in Chinese. So, just now I have given some examples at lexical, syntactical, and discourse level about using parallel text for comparative language studies. This kind of study is called data-driven learning. So here, the task of the foreign language learner is to discover the foreign language, and the task of the language teacher is to provide a context in which learners can develop strategies for discovery, strategies through which they can learn how to learn. So this is a very famous quote by Tim Jones, and he once said, every student is a Sherlock Holmes, so they learn through discovery. That's the essence of corpus-based learning. So to summarize, there are a number of pedagogical applications of English-Chinese parallel corpus. First, it can raise language awareness through data-driven learning. It can also overcome cultural differences, because quite often we do not understand the target culture, but through the comparative studies of the two languages, we can overcome the cultural difference. Of course, we can do translation studies based on the parallel texts. Also, the materials will benefit teachers with limited L2 command. The English teachers with less English command, they can use Chinese to help them to teach English. It can also facilitate self-study of a foreign language. If I'm studying English on my own, if I have Chinese to help me to study the English language, it certainly helps my self-study. And also the parallel corpus can help us to easily create teaching materials. So to conclude, English-Chinese parallel concordancing is a very useful tool for language teaching and learning. It can also be used for cross-linguistic comparative studies. It is a particularly powerful tool for translation studies, and the corpus data are crucial for meaningful research. Thank you.